such as the Special Weapons and Tactical Team, which is SWAT, Control Tactical Team, the Major Narcotics Unit, and he also served as an internal affairs investigator. Jerry rose through the ranks, serving as lieutenant, captain, deputy chief, and as the department's first assistant chief of police. Jerry was appointed police chief on August 1st, 2001, and was the longest tenured police chief in the history of Fresno Police Department. He is the longest. He is also the longest serving police chief of any major city in the United States. In his role as police chief, Jerry oversaw a department of more than 1,100 employees and an operating budget of $200 million. Jerry earned his Bachelor's of Science degree in criminology from California State University, Fresno, and a master's degree in management from California Polytech University at Pomona. Jerry is also a graduate of the California Command College, where his peers recognized him as the most inspirational student. In addition, Jerry is a graduate of the FBI's National Executive Institute. Jerry has served as the president of the California Police Chiefs Association and is a past recipient of the Joseph T. Mallory Award, the most prestigious award granted by the California Police Chiefs Association. Jerry was chosen as a Paul Harris Fellow for Rotary International and was recognized in 2018 with the Lifetime Achievement Award by Fresno County Office of Education. Jerry also served as the second vice president of the Major Cities of Chiefs Association, representing the largest municipal police departments in the United States. Jerry has been married to his wife Diane for 39 years, has been blessed with 2 children and 5 grandchildren. Let's give a nice welcome for Jerry.
Thank you, Larry, very, very much, and thank you for introducing my wife earlier, so I do not forget to do that, but I'm going to do it again. My wife, Diane, 39 years of marriage. And we actually met our freshman year in high school, and we've been, she fell in love with me instantly, I'm sure. Maybe not. But yeah, 39 years, and again, it's a blessing to have our 2 children here locally, as well as our 5 grandchildren. And you may have seen our latest granddaughter. We did a commercial here in the month of right towards Christmas and New Year's, and our granddaughter Charlotte, we were able to display her. So thank you for having me here. You know, I've spoken at Rotaries for, I don't know, 25 plus years in Fresno. And I think this is the first time I've spoken at a Rotary not in a police uniform. And so it feels a little bit strange to me. So I want to just start off with something a little bit humorous about a pastor and a mayor and a mule. And so it was a pastor who found a mule, a dead mule, on his church property. He was a little confused about what he should do. So he called the health department and said that they said that they could not remove the mule, the dead mule, without the mayor's approval. The mayor, unfortunately, not like the future mayor, had a reputation for being mean and cruel and not very friendly. The pastor called the mayor, and the mayor did not disappoint. The mayor got upset for having to deal with such a trivial issue. The mayor asked the pastor, "Why are you bothering me? Isn't it your job to bury the dead?" And the pastor prayed briefly before responding in order to get the right response. And the pastor replied, "Yes, Mayor, it is my job to bury the dead, but I always like to notify the next of kin before I do." So I apologize if there's any clergy in here. So let me, I just want to share a little bit, and I know we're going to leave about 10 minutes for question and answer at the end. And I did want to share a little bit about my time in the police department, since I did spend 2/3 of my life there. 40 years and 5 months in the department, and worked my way up the ranks, as you heard in my bio. and worked in neighborhoods all over Fresno, primarily in the southern part of the city, is where I dedicated my service, and then worked my way up through the ranks, but spending the last 18 years as the police chief. And you know, as I look back on that 18 years as the police chief, quite honestly, I'm not sure how I was able to stay 18 years. The average life expectancy in service for a police chief in a major city is under 4 years. That means police chiefs are transitioning every 4 years. And but I had a lot of good people surrounding me, quite frankly, in my staff, the officers, and the community. And I just want to thank you for allowing me to serve this community for so long as your police chief, and for the confidence that you had, not only in me, but also my department. You know, I'm often asked, you know, what are you most proud of during your time in the department? And there's really far too many things to mention in terms of what I'm proud of. But one of the things that's also asked is, have we gotten better as a city in terms of crime? And sometimes that's hard to determine, because when we turn on the news, we see murders, we see a horrible incident like we had here recently, where 10 people were shot in the backyard of a residence, 4 of those people killed. Thank God the individuals are in custody that were involved in that. And here's the reality. I looked back last week, in fact, over my 18 years as the chief. And when I became the chief, and then up until I left, actually in 2018, through the end of 2018 when the statistics were captured. Violent crime was reduced over that period of time, even though population increased by 40,000 people in our city. Violent crime was reduced by over 28% during that time period. Property crimes, thefts, burglaries, auto theft, a number of those combined, were reduced by 42%. And auto theft, you remember, if you look back in the mid-90s, we were the car theft capital of the nation. Remember 1994, we had 13,500 cars stolen in our city. You know, people were running out of cars to steal. They had to steal the same car over and over. And you know, 18 years, 66% reduction in auto theft in our city. We're no longer the car theft capital of the nation. We're no longer even in the top 10 like we were. And so we've come a long way. Robberies reduced by 33%, and burglaries, people breaking into homes and businesses, has been reduced by 43%. So the answer is yes. We have become a safer city, but we still have so much more to accomplish. Graffiti. At one time, you know, there was graffiti everywhere in our city. The police department took that over under the Autry administration and made it a priority. And we partnered with community groups. We went after taggers, vandals. And I'm proud to say that we, right now, 98% of the graffiti that's reported to the department is removed within 24 hours. And that's why you don't see graffiti everywhere in our city. I do get concerned about that. And I'll give you an example. I was in New Jersey and speaking at a national conference a few years ago. And the New Jersey State Trooper picked me up at the airport, took me to the event. I spoke, spent the night. I was riding back with him to the airport the following day, and we were on the freeway. And as I looked at the freeway on both sides, the walls, the overpass, I could not find anywhere where there was not graffiti. It was covered every square inch. And I remember asking him, who's responsible for removing the graffiti in this area, in the city, on the freeway? And he says, and he looked over at me, and he said, what graffiti? They had become so accustomed to graffiti in their city, they no longer noticed. And I'm going to tell you what worries me about Fresno. It's not the graffiti, because we had that under control. What worries me about Fresno is the trash. The trash that we're seeing on our freeways, the trash that we're seeing on our streets, the trash that we're seeing in our neighborhoods. And it almost appears like we've become accustomed to much of it. Much of that is a result of some of the homeless population that we see within our city that, quite frankly, has taken over certain areas. And so when I go out door to door and I knock on doors, and I do that in the afternoon, and people actually invite me into their homes on occasion, and we sit there at their table, my wife and I, or just me, and I hear about the issues that are important to them. The number one issue that I hear in Fresno, no matter where I go, north or south, is the issue of homelessness in our city. And it is not restricted to our city in terms of being a challenge. It's a national epidemic, but we're responsible for our city. And so that is the very thing, one of the very things, the first things that I am going to tackle as the mayor of that city. It has to be. And I don't believe there's a simple solution. If there was, it would have already been done. It would have already been dealt with. But I do believe there are strategies and solutions out there. And the one that I believe is going to be the strategy that is most beneficial to us as a city, the one that we're going to see the most progress on instantly in terms of the visibility of homeless in our city, is to establish navigation centers. And I've spoken quite a bit about this. I've been to San Diego. A navigation center is where you centralize your homeless population in an environment where they're safe. An environment that's not cold. They have sprung up shelters in San Diego. They're large tents, similar to what you would see for barracks, but they're aesthetically pleasing to the area in which they're in. And they have bunk beds in there. You can house 200, 250 people in them. And within there you have, the walls are about 18 inches. You have air conditioning and heating, laundry facilities, showers, bathrooms, all of the necessities that they would need. They can come as they are. There's 5 things that drive homelessness in our city today. Number 1 is addiction to alcohol. 2 is addiction to drugs, primarily methamphetamine, because methamphetamine originated right here in our valley. So it's more available, more affordable, and we have more addicts, people suffering from that addiction out on our streets. The third thing is mental health. We have a mental health crisis in our city. And the fourth is veterans who oftentimes feel abandoned, who come back into society, sometimes suffering from some type of PTSD, and they sometimes are addicted to alcohol or drugs or have mental health issues. And then lastly are families. You would be alarmed at the number of families that are out in our streets today who have been displaced, women and children. Some of those displaced as a result of domestic violence. And so those are what drive our categories in Fresno. You'll see homeless populations concentrated in areas near recycling centers, because those recycling centers is what is the magnet that draws them to that particular neighborhood. Or perhaps they're drawn to an area where there is a nearby street corner where they can go to and they can solicit donations. And I will tell you that some of those individuals are making $300 a day. And we as a society have to exercise our compassion in a more wise manner and not give to these individuals to enable them to continue the lifestyle. One of the reasons that some of the homeless population, because our homeless task force, the police officers combined with our sanitation workers, we go out and we offer services to these individuals and move them along so that they don't establish a particular presence in an area through camping. We have a no camping ordinance. And one of the things that we see is that fewer than 1% take advantage of services. And part of that has to do with the rules associated with those services. And so a navigation center is for the purpose of, if you want to bring your animal, you bring your animal. Bring your belongings, bring your addiction, bring your mental health issues, and come as you are. We just want you out of the environment, out of the neighborhoods, out of the shopping centers, into these structures that we can centralize service. And they're not intended to be forever. In fact, that's part of San Diego's failure, is they don't have housing available for them on that vacuum. But they're there for 3, perhaps 4 months to become stabilized, and then to transition them out into some form of housing. Now, we all know we have an affordable housing problem in our city, like most cities in California, but there are alternatives, C-trains, that are very affordable, that are aesthetically pleasing, that some people actually are using those in the mountain environments to use as a home, or tiny home villages that we have to take a look at in our city. We have to become creative. And it's not going to be something that the city of Fresno solves alone. The vast majority of the homeless population lives in the city of Fresno. The problem is the vast majority of the monies to deal with it are at the county level, which is why it's important that we as a city partner with the county in addressing this issue. I'm proud to say I have the support and the endorsement of all 5 of the Fresno County Board of Supervisors. And I know, based on our relationship, that we're going to be able to come to the table and bring forth some immediate solutions to the homeless population of Fresno. So that's first and foremost. We have to deal with that issue. You know, the question was asked of me the other night, where would these navigation centers be? Well, quite frankly, I've met with the people at the rescue mission. I used to be on their board. They have areas there that really would be best suited for that. In fact, they already have a sprung up structure, a tent at that location for some people. I don't want to necessarily concentrate the homeless population in any particular part of the city, but we do know we need to centralize it so they can have services so they can later on become prosperous people in our community. So I am committed to addressing that issue in our city. The second thing that's always going to be foundational to me is public safety, police and fire services. You know, I think you know that in the police department, we have fewer officers today than we did 10 years ago. Yet the population has increased, and that happened during the recession. So we have to figure out a way to restore the police department to the level that they can provide services to citizens in a manner in which they expect and deserve. And then the fire department. They have fewer firefighters today than they have in perhaps 30 years. They've done an incredible job of being able to meet the demands, but quite frankly, I don't know that they can continue at that pace for many years. I do believe that the fire department has to change their service delivery model, in the fact that when they go to a medical aid that they do not go in a big fire rig. Perhaps there's an alternative to that with SUVs or some form of a vehicle that's out there that allows them to become more efficient. And I've met with the firefighters on this very issue about having paramedics in those vehicles and to be able to respond in those mobile vehicles. And they're very, very supportive of that. In fact, so supportive that I've earned the endorsement not only of the Fresno Police Officers Association, but also the Firefighters Association. So public safety is always going to be something that I think is very important to our city. The simple fact is, if people do not feel safe, they're less likely to go out and to shop at shopping centers in our city. They're less likely to allow their children and grandchildren to go out into the front yard and play, or walk to school, or walk to a park, or for families to even go to a park, because of the fear in which they feel. Fear can create paralysis in the city to where people are afraid to leave their home. And then the third thing I already talked about was the beautification of neighborhoods. It is so important that we make that a focus in our city. And I'm committed to creating neighborhood beautification teams, to making that the priority, not just in our neighborhoods and our streets in Fresno, but to work collectively with Caltrans and the California Highway Patrol to address the incredible blight that we see on our freeways today. If you drive in Nevada, you drive in Arizona, you look at their freeways and you say, wow, they're beautiful. Incredible landscape design based on a desert environment, and yet you drive on our freeways in Fresno, 41, 180, 168, 99, and you think, wow, what happened? We have to do a better job, and we can't do it on our own. We have to partner with Caltrans. I have great relationships with the state of California, Caltrans, the Commissioner of California Highway Patrol, Warren Stanley, and I are friends. His family lives here in Fresno. And I plan on partnering with those organizations to make sure that that becomes a priority for our city. Because we drive on our freeways. People making decisions whether or not to live in our city based on the appearance of our freeways and our streets in Fresno. And then lastly, far too often I go and talk to people that are in the business community, perhaps the development community, and I hear this. You know, Jerry, when we go to Clovis, they roll out the red carpet in permit review, or permitting and plan review. When we come to Fresno, they don't roll out the red carpet. They roll out the red tape. So how are we going to do that differently? And I've heard mayors talk about this for many, many years, but we've yet to come up with a solution. And I am committed. I'm committed to going in and spending time in those departments once I'm elected as mayor, before I even assume the office. and finding out what the culture is, the practice, the policies, what are some of the challenges that they face, and being able to make some recommendations or at least implement some changes there. I've also got some outside funding committed to do a detailed analysis audit of our entire process of permitting and building permit inspections, and comparing those to some of the cities that have a good reputation, and having that done as well before I even take the oath to be the mayor, because people are very, very impatient with change right now in our city, and I anticipate making those changes very, very quickly once I get elected to the position of mayor for this city. And so I just want to leave you with that, those thoughts in terms of the priorities that I have as the mayor of this city. The transition from police chief to mayor, some think it may be hard or difficult. I don't believe so. I know the inner workings of city government. I know the department directors and some of those that are in the mayor's office, city manager's office, that have done an incredible job. And I also know those individuals that perhaps need to leave. And I'm not afraid to make change, just like when I became the police chief of Fresno. I had to select my own team. Those individuals are my deputy chiefs, captains, and lieutenants. And I'm looking for a team of individuals that are honest, that are hardworking, that are willing to carry out the vision that I believe is important to this city, and people that are committed, that they're committed. They own this city of Fresno, just like I own it. I've spent 40 years in the city of Fresno. I've been involved in shootings. I've been shot at. I've ran through the alleys of neighborhoods at 3 in the morning. As a police chief, I've been in the hospital with families when they have a 5 or 6 year old daughter that's been shot in a drive-by shooting. I've held hands with them. I've prayed with them because I love this city and I love the people in Fresno. My wife and I had a decision to make when this opportunity came up for me to run for mayor. We had delayed traveling for many, many years. And it was my goal to retire, to travel, to enjoy the family. But when this opportunity came up, the door opened for me to run for mayor when Lee Brand decided he was not. I knew it was a decision that had to be made very quickly, but prayerfully, and we made that decision. And I'm willing to set aside our personal desires of travel and family for the betterment of this city. And I hope that at some point in time, you folks will stand with me and support me because I'm sold out for Fresno. God bless you, and thank you. Any questions any of you have about anything? Yes, sir.
You talked about crime, understand it. Do you see the California governor eye to eye? And if not, why not?
I've not had the opportunity. I worked very, very closely at one time, even though Jerry Brown and I were oftentimes in opposite sides of the camp. We worked very, very close together when he was the governor. In fact, when I was the president of the California Police Chiefs Association, I worked with him frequently, as well as I did with Governor Schwarzenegger when he was here, and brought monies into the city of Fresno. That same relationship will occur with myself and Governor Newsom. I'm very, very confident of that. Because I believe just because people may be from different walks of life, or perhaps people are from different parties, that there's no reason we have to be at odds on issues. And I'm going to take advantage, quite frankly, of what the state of California has to offer, just like they're offering money today for homelessness. I'm going to take advantage of the relationships that I've established in Washington, D.C. But I do believe that many of the decisions that have come out of Sacramento have been detrimental to local government in California. One of them being with the laws, Prop 47, 57, AB 109. It's been horrible, been absolutely horrible what they've done to the residents of California. And now they're starting to realize it. And they're starting to make little tweaks and adjustments. But the reality is they've taken away much of the control of our judges in the courtrooms. They've taken away much of our control and authority in law enforcement. And unfortunately, as we start to see tragedies occur in our communities across California as a result of those changes in the law, that's when we're going to see the pendulum swing back to where it needs to be. Unfortunately, it requires tragedy for that to occur. Just like we saw in 1992 with Mike Reynolds, when his daughter Kimber Reynolds was killed in the Tower District. It was as a result of that incident that we ultimately ended up with 3 strikes and 10-20 to life. When we started to have tougher sentencing in California. I don't want to see tragedy, but I do know that tragedy oftentimes wakes people up in our state. Yes, sir.
As far as beautification is concerned, I think the maintenance of beautifying an area is more the problem than just the creation of the beauty. And when you travel into Nevada or Las Vegas or even Modesto, you see a lot of freeways that have concrete designs that, and I would suggest that would be a good maintenance avoidance.
Totally agree. That is the landscape, the desert landscape look. That's beautiful. It really is. Now, I also understand the importance of greenery in a city on the freeways as a result of some of our emissions and pollution and how that counters it. But there's a balance that can be achieved with both, and I really, really believe that. But if we're going to put greenery on the freeways, we have to have an ability to maintain it. And that is something that I know maintenance-wise in California, in Caltrans, the maintenance budget has been stripped quite a bit. But that doesn't mean we have to have trash. It doesn't mean we have to have freeways that look horrible. We can do better when we will in that arena. But I agree with you on the landscape design. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to ask you a little bit about the convention center. I know recently nonprofits, Trish and I sat on the Central California Women's Complex Board, and just the new management of possibly not allowing you to use local vendors, making it really expensive to have events right here in our own city. So do you have any advice on that, or where you think that might go? Because that really, if you do a 20 to 30% surcharge for using local vendors, will make it near impossible for people to bring in business to our own city.
Yes. I think we were doing fine just the way we were, quite frankly. I think what's happened, and I think they underestimated this, when the council chambers was packed with people. And I'm not going to, yeah, I am. Jim Pardini has catered over there for decades. He's catered all over Fresno. And I got to tell you, he's done some nonprofit work for Fresno. He's poured his heart and soul into Fresno. And I thought it was very offensive for them to even question, quite frankly, Jim Pardini or that service and to open it up when I don't believe that they needed to. And so my opinion is it should not even been an issue on the table. There's plenty of other things in our city that we need to address beyond that. Now, in terms of the Convention and Visitors Bureau and the dollars there that I think we subsidize about $700,000 a year as a city on the convention center, that does have to be looked at. I do know there's been deferred maintenance in many respects, that the infrastructure is such that things have to occur. I don't know if that's better addressed by the city of Fresno or a private company. But I do know we have work to do in that arena. But the simple fact is, as a city, sometimes you do have to subsidize those types of things so that you can bring people into your city, that you can increase your room occupancy. And so you do have to subsidize those things. Oftentimes you have to subsidize inner city housing so that for a lot of reasons. So those subsidies I'm not afraid of. I just don't think that is an issue that's important enough. Jim Pardini should continue to serve food at the convention center. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Are you a promoter of the high-speed rail, or you rather see it down?
Well, it's not going to die. Let me just say that. Later in January, I'm going to be going on a tour of and to learn more about it. But I did meet with Tom Richards for lunch this week. He's on the High Speed Rail Authority board. He gave me some insights. Whether you're for high-speed rail or you're against high-speed rail, the train has left the station. And so here's the hope. By 2028, that there is high-speed rail connected from Bakersfield to Merced. Now, we don't need to get on a train to go to Bakersfield or Merced. We know that. But the next logical step is for that train to be connected to the Bay Area. And when that happens, you're going to see Fresno explode. And when I say when it happens, I believe it will happen, but it's not going to happen for a lot of years. But I do believe it is something that the voters approved, however, approved based on a dollar amount that has now grown substantially. And but I do believe that far enough down the road that somehow, some way, it's going to have to be completed if we're going to be benefited in Fresno. And the benefit is for the valley. It is for Fresno, because we were left out of the equation when I-5 was built. Fresno was abandoned because people started taking that freeway from Southern California to Northern California, and we have the 99 freeway, and we know what that has done to us in the valley. This corrects that, or will correct it. That's the hope. That's the intent. I wasn't at the onset, I wasn't a supporter of high-speed rail. I wasn't. However, I did understand, in speaking with certain individuals that were involved, what that benefit would look like to the city of Fresno if and when it ever got done. I do believe today that it's going to get done, but that thing isn't going to be. We're not going to be 2020, or I would say 2020 before that thing gets us to the Bay Area, in my opinion. Maybe sooner, but I think that's what I mean, 20, what did I say? 2030, I'm sorry. No, 2020 to finish Bakersfield to Merced. 2028 before we finish that. So we're probably looking at 2040, who knows? So, yes, sir.
Jerry, is there a way we can make them beautify downtown Fresno the way we have torn it up? It looks terrible.
Yeah, Fresno, the downtown area, I do believe that opening up the Fulton Mall was a good thing for Fresno, but it was a starting point. It was foundational. I think downtown has to be a priority in terms of revitalization.
But what I mean is that where they've torn down all the buildings for the high-speed rail, can't we make high-speed rail, at least put some trees in there and make that beautify a little bit? It looks terrible.
I don't know, and maybe that's part of it. I do know that they went into this thinking it was going to be a lot easier than they thought in terms of acquiring land. One of the things I found out in the police department, when they would acquire the land, and then the homeless population started occupying, it was no longer a authority of the police department or the city of Fresno to address the homeless on those properties. And so you end up with trash on properties that are now owned by the state of California, but they're not doing their job to address the beautification efforts. And that is a conversation we have to continue to have with them. They have to fulfill their responsibility and obligation to a city. It's not just about coming in and taking land and building a railroad. It's about not doing those things that are going to be detrimental to us as a city. And so those are ongoing conversations, but I do like that suggestion in terms of what they need to do. Yes, ma'am.
So a two-part question about the homeless population. Is there a decent percentage of the homeless that did not originate in Fresno but came here from other places?
Combination, but I don't, and I had asked that question of my folks too, because at one time, after we got sued as a city, like many cities have, we got sued by the ACLU, and the federal court said in order to move, if you have 10 or more people at a location for 10 or more days, you must notice them, give them a notice, just like a landlord would evict someone, because they have a right to that particular area they're at. That if you take their property, whether you believe it's junk or not, you have to store it for 30 days so they can come and get it. So we ended up losing a lawsuit, and I have to say that after that, the loss of the lawsuit and the paying out of $2 million, there was a reluctance to do very much with the homeless population. At that time, I do believe we may have had an influx of people coming into our city. But I don't know to what degree. When I asked my homeless task force officers who were out there making contact with people, quite frankly, they felt it was the same people that they had seen over and over again. And there's probably 3,000 to 3,500. So I don't know if we've seen that influx over the years.
So the reason I ask is because I would imagine that in temperate climates on the coast, I think that the drug problem is a statewide problem. And that when you become homeless, you tend to find a temperate climate. And so I think some of the homeless population may be migrating. So my question is, why isn't the state addressing this so that when certain communities are overburdened, some of that homeless population, if there's a cohesive solution like using railroad cars and creating navigation communities, why can't they be spread out into some of these other more affluent communities that have no homeless and have them take on a share of the state's drug problem?
You're trying to get me killed. So the state of California is finally putting money where they need to put it. And to the tune, I believe, of about $600 million and maybe even close to $1 billion now. In fact, I think there was supposed to be an announcement today. I got an email this morning from the state of California. But I believe that the recent channeling of funding to cities, in the city of Fresno, I think it's going to be about $5 million is coming in from the state. That's going to be a big help, plus the money going to the county of Fresno. But that money is not guaranteed, and money alone is not going to fix this problem. But I do notice that there's a lot of not in my backyard attitude. And so any attempt to relocate the homeless population anywhere is going to be met with some form of resistance. I already felt it. I made a comment the other night on a debate about navigation centers and putting them down at the rescue mission, where, by the way, our homeless population has been for many, many years. And if you go down there and you look in front of the Poverello house, there are tents and trash, and it looks like a third world country. Now, my suggestion was to take those individuals off the street into the tent and clean up that area so at least from a passerby's view, somebody coming into the city, going, taking Ventura Avenue, whatever the case is, that it looks attractive. And you would have thought I was Satan. One of the council members attacked me on social media, saying, then why should we have navigation centers there? Why don't we put them up at Copper River? Why don't we put them in the northeast or northwest part of Fresno? Because services are down there. That's where you want to centralize these individuals so that services can be brought to them and get them out of the environment. So for me, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer in terms of how that occurs. But the state of California is going to pony up and give us some monies. I believe that with all my heart. So I'm going to close with this, because I see I'm getting the hook. You've probably already heard through this campaign that there are individuals out there, like any political race, where people will become nasty, where people will say negative things, where people will go on the attack. I felt that the other night at a debate that I was at. My opponent started attacking me on issues that occurred in the department. I shared with him, and I'll share with you, no matter how much I'm attacked, I'm not attacking back. And the reason is simple. I want to unite people in this city under one Fresno. The North, the South, different faiths, different cultures, different nationalities, because it's not until we unite are we going to be able to tackle some of these issues that are important to us. We are so divided as a country because of what's happening in Washington, D.C. We cannot, and I will not, allow that rhetoric to spill over into local government. And I know that there are people that are going to try to push me in one camp or the other in order to create a greater divide in the city of Fresno. I refuse to play that game, and I refuse to attack. It's not winning at all costs. It is winning for the purpose of benefiting the community in which you serve. And that's what I'm going to do. So if you don't hear me respond in some form of an attack along the way, please don't think I'm weak. It's just, I believe, the right thing to do. God bless you. Thank you. No honorary.
Well, we have a book for you, we call it, I want to be a police officer, which we're gonna donate to the Lowell School Library. We'd like to.